All right. So now we have our page model classes and then our test classes here in these two different namespaces. So the first thing I'm going to do is .NET Restore. This is going to pull back all of our NuGet packages that we need to build everything, and then a .NET build. All right, so it built successfully. The first thing we're going to come down is come into the test class here, and you can sort of see how we're hard coding some of these values. A lot of the times when you're doing tests, you don't want to be hard coding these values. You want to store them separately. And for things like this, that they're environmental, we actually store them inside of an application settings file. For .NET Core, it's going to be JSON. For .NET Framework, it's going to be XML. So inside of this application configuration, we store values for, your browser timeout, your, the polling time for rechecking if an element is available. We also have options for changing when you're logging information. So one of the most common things that you do with the configuration file like this is you're changing what environment you're testing in. There's also the added benefit of if you have something stored in your app settings like this, you don't need to recompile the app to make configuration changes. So I can compile once, it's good, and then I can make configuration changes from there. So one of the things I'm going to be doing is showing you how to grab this password value out of here, which could feasibly be different for every environment that we're testing against. So when I'm making my configuration changes, I can do that here. So I'm just going to get rid of all this extra test code here. And I'm going to add this value to my app settings. So I'm going to come to the app settings here. I'm going to add a new field. We're going to call this password. Paste that value in, save it. So now I've added this in here. And you can do this for any number of different fields. So if you have access key, either like Sauce Labs, or if you have user accounts that you don't want to store hard coded, you can set them here. All right. So the next thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to add the namespace for the config class. So I've added the utilities helper namespace for MAQS, and that's going to give us access to the static config class. So we have ways of pulling these values out. So we can get an entire section, which is going to return a dictionary of key value pairs that will match basically this. So if we pull back the remote browser, it's going to be getting back a dictionary that has Selenium command timeout, 6,000, etc. So I'm going to get a value for section. So my section name, I'm going to go grab that, is Magenic Max because I added it to the Magenic Max. And you could add your own section if you wanted to. For this, it's really just going to be adding it to the Magenic Max section. Depending on your type of project, you might have different sections for your environment URLs. You might have a different API layer that you might need to configure. So for this, just going to keep it basic at Magenic. And we're going to add in the section name and then the key, which is the name of the field. So for this is password. I'm going to assign that to a value. We're going to call this new password. So I'm going to do two things. I'm going to print this to the console. And then I'm going to add an assert using the Microsoft unit test library. And we're just going to assert that the expected, which is the password in our test, matches the new password that we're pulling out of the configuration. So if I run this test now on the console, I should see this 1, 2, 3 as well. So let's run that now. And there we go. So with that, you can sort of see that we can be storing values instead of the configuration without having to recompile the app. We can make configuration changes. They're going to get picked up the next time this runs. Uh, this has been Josh with MAQS in 5.